What's going on, all you awesome people out there? I'm Scott, Brandon, Obi, and of course, Mr. JD Walker, and welcome to the Sports Den on Zingo TV, channel 249 and 250. Kindly make sure to download the Zingo TV app on the app stores of iOS and Android. When you download, make sure to rate and leave a comment. Both apps are free. And lastly, Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire TV Sticks, and Roku 6 All Smart TVs 2016 forward. Okay, I really don't like doing that every week, but I do it anyway.
How many G's were in that Google there, Scott?
I don't know. Yeah, Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire TV Sticks, Roku 6, and All Smart TVs 2016 forward. So if I ever basically get tired of this, I can always become one of those commercial guys for like car ads that has to do all the legal stuff at the end. But anyway, gentlemen, hope you guys are doing well. We're going to be talking some World Cup because basically we're going to be talking about the fact that the U.S. team desperately needed a win today. Got a tie. We're going to be talking about the Jets, who as a result, basically the Jets and Pats had more punts than points. So we'll talk about that little meltdown there. That'll be Brandon's entire thing probably. We're going to let him roll with that one. But JD, do you want to talk World Cup first? You know, World Cup chaos, Qatar.
Where do we begin with the chaos? We're only 2 days into this mess, and just from
It's
the
a catastrophe.
Yeah,
Ooh, that's a good one.
catastrophe. Nice one.
Thank you.
We'll go with
Just
that.
thought of that one.
Why Qatar? We all know at this point bribes, lots of them, and somehow we're still doing this here this week. But you know, the documentary on Netflix sums that up way better than I can. Where you know, I just started watching that. I'm already hooked. Only 30 minutes in. But as for today's game with USA Wales. It's funny because I was actually talking with a coworker who's also into soccer via IM before the game. And I said, so what do you think? I'm thinking 1-1. Probably Gareth Bale breaking our hearts again. And that's exactly what happened. Gareth flippin' Bale strikes again with a penalty kick tying goal in the 82nd minute off of a particularly dumb foul by Walker Zimmerman from the U.S. team. This is a very young U.S. team, the second youngest in this tournament by the average age of the players. It's clearly setting up for the next round, for 2026. But they still really should get out of the group stage. But in order to have the upper hand to do that, they needed a win today, as you say. Because with the way England absolutely destroyed Iran 6-2 this morning, and the U.S. is playing England on Friday. If both teams play how they did today, that's not going to go very well for the U.S., which then sets up a must-win Iran in the third game. Yeah, no pressure at all with especially. With political undertones and all of the other. Go ahead, Obi.
I am not as your sound went. Maybe it was just my side. That's why I started talking. Apologies for talking over you. But I see it a little less dire than you. First of all, as soon as the goal was scored, that was the worst thing that happened to the U.S. The entire game changed, and Wales decided to play, and the U.S. kind of folded up their tents a little bit in a way that was not so great. I'm less worried than you because we have 4 goals to spare. Like we can lose to England 2-1, 2-0, and that goal differential is going to be looking nice for us, assuming Wales does not beat Iran. So there's some less fear for me than you're showing, and I am looking at the bright side. That was the most athletic American team I've ever seen. They were faster than their opponents. I've never seen that before. Their ball handling skills were as good as their opponents, if not better. I've never really seen that before in the World Cup stage. I'm used to a good goalie, which we did show to have. I mean, he got his hand on the penalty kick, which is, odd enough as it is. So
Turner did as good as he could in that situation, but it's Gareth Bale versus Matt Turner. No chance.
But why do you hate Gareth Bale again?
He basically did the same thing he did against the Philadelphia Union in the MLS Cup final. But we also had What Turner did have get a hand on it. Just the kick was so powerful, it wasn't stop. Nothing short of a brick wall was stopping that laser into the corner from Bale. It was also an inconsistently officiated match, to say the least. It was a ref from Qatar who had never officiated a World Cup game before, and the cards were all over the place. There was Pulisic was getting smacked around the whole game and not called, and a lot of the fouls weren't getting called. So it was back and forth in that regard. I agree, Obi, that it was a very athletic U.S. team. And what I was impressed to see was it was usually in the past from U.S. men's soccer, we see very conservative approach. They went and attacked right away. They got a free kick within the first 3 minutes. Weah had a good chance around the 8 or 9 minute mark where he had a shot. It bounced off of a Welsh defender's head and was almost an own goal that Hennessy, the Welsh goalie, saved, but it was very close. So, and then when Weah broke through in the 36th minute, how long has it been since Wales has been in a World Cup match? The last player to score a goal against Wales in a World Cup game before Weah this afternoon was Pele in 1958. That's how long. But
yeah,
Tufu Weah was part of an attacking U.S. squad. Pulisic is one of the better players in the world. Everybody, or at least everybody thinks so, aside from his club team. But this is, while it's not complete panic mode. The U.S. definitely has an uphill battle from here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in your boat right now with this, just because of the fact that this was a winnable game. And this is funny because if you heard Landon Donovan, I think it was Landon Donovan during halftime, he's like, "You have the 1-goal lead, you have to go and finish this. You cannot play it like you have a lead here." And what did they do? They played, they had a lead, and you could just feel the vibe in the stadium, which was very, very pro Welsh. If you notice the color scheme of that, and you look at that and you kind of got this feeling like the U.S. was just trying to hang on, and doing the exact same thing that as it happened, Landon Donovan was like, "Do not do." And then what ends up happening? Yeah, it was a crummy call. It was a penalty kick. I get that. But you put yourself in a position to allow that to become the tying goal. And that right there is the reason why you tied this game. You got a point out of it, sure, but you lost too, and that's more important.
Yeah, and that particular call against Zimmerman was a legitimate call. There was a lot of uneven officiating in this game, but that particular call was legit. That was just a brain lock, dumb move by Zimmerman to put them in that position. Brandon Aronson had a chance in the offensive zone a few minutes before that just kind of whiffed on. But otherwise, Aronson is going to be key down the stretch for subs if he's not in the starting 11. Another thing that I don't know if it was Donovan or Lallis that mentioned it after the game was we didn't see Gio Reyna.
Mm-hmm. I heard of that.
That was very surprising with all the substitutions, and you could see that the heat of Qatar was getting to all the players by the end.
Oh yeah,
by the 85th minute, everybody was gassed.
And that's one of the problems that people had with this. The fact that it is, in this case, in November. To show by comparison, when it comes here to the States in 4 years, it's taking place in June and July. You had to do this in November to offset the weather, and you're still having problems anyway.
Right, because November, December was the only chance that we had for it maybe not to be as warm as Satan's butthole like it is. We're practically playing on the surface of the sun in this World Cup.
Might as well be playing on the sun.
The commentator suggested that it was not grueling heat, but it was the effort both teams were putting in. I don't know what the weather was like in Qatar, but yeah, the officiating was shockingly
a lot of minutes in the end.
Yeah, the officiating was shockingly all over the place to the point where a casual soccer fan could see. Like it looked like, okay, these guys are going to call it tight, and they called it tight, 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 and then they called it loose, 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 and then they went back to tight, and there was like, no need to go back to tight because the game wasn't out of control. Like, coming from an American football mind, this was not two teams that were not playing controlled soccer.
Pass interference.
There was just all sorts of weirdness going on. Then they stop it for a non-head injury. So they stop it again for two more non-head injuries the other side. And then Pulisic goes down and they don't stop it for a non-head injury. And it was just but I don't think that's what cost the US as much as they couldn't get out of their heads and they played like they were ahead as opposed to because as soon as the tying goal scored, they played better again. They were the dominant
and yet
team
you still felt like they could have lost.
Tied.
Even when that game was tied, you felt like they could have lost that game right there.
Yeah, no, as long as. But what I'm saying is the game was tied in the beginning of the game. They were the dominant team until they scored. They scored. They were not the dominant team. They were playing like a team with a lead. The game got tied. Yes, the Wales had a few opportunities. I would put as much of that to everybody being tired as anything else. Mm-hmm. But the U.S. in that middle section, when they were up, played like they were up when they shouldn't be, especially when you have this thing with goal differential. And if Iran were to go and have beaten Wales 3-0 and the U.S. loses by 4 goals to England and you tie with Iran, then you're out. That's the one nice thing about soccer in the early rounds. Goal differential matters. There's no need to play for the tie or not to lose. You have to play this to run it up on the teams you can score against.
When you have these games, sure. Oh yeah, this isn't like an MLS season with 34 games here, where you can get a little bit of parity going on. This is tight. Every goal matters. So the fact that the UK got 6 goals right off the bat gives them a massive edge in a very short first round.
All right, I mean,
not that they're going to lose anyway, but still.
England is absolutely in the driver's seat now.
Oh yeah,
and it would be a massive upset for the U.S. to come out and stick it to them at this point. I'm not confident, but we've seen crazier things happen, so anything is possible.
Now, if you're Welsh, who do you root for?
If you're Wales, who do you root for?
Yeah,
I think.
I'm
pretty sure that the Welsh are conditioned to root against England just because.
Yeah, I know, but assuming that England's going to be in there, you want to root in this case for England to give yourself a better shot of moving on.
I think if you're rooting with your head and you're any of the teams that played today, you're just rooting for England to do what it did to everybody but you. You're like, we'll take a 1-1 tie against England, and England, you just Harry Kane and company go crazy against the other teams, the other two. That's what you're rooting for. Especially if you're Welsh, but I don't have that problem. Like, I'm definitely rooting for England to hand it to Wales as well, and for us to, eke out a tie and, beat Iran.
It's funny. You can go right from London right into Wales. The town on the eastern side is Portlanca. Crap! I just drew a blank. Yeah, sorry, it took me a second. That is actually a very easy train ride right from London. It goes right into the town.
Yeah.
And
easier than pronouncing it.
Yeah, I screwed it up the first time there. I tried so hard. I was gonna be like, I got this. And then I'm like
and it was like a completely different team in the second half for the Americans. Where they had the pressure in the first half, and then, as Obi said, they kind of kept it on a little bit after that goal, but it was really after halftime that it seemed like all momentum just shifted.
Yep, and like I said, that crowd was 12th man.
I disagree with. I think that the crowd was into it because their team was performing better. Because in the first half, it was all USA, different USA.
Yeah, but the crowd. I mean, honestly, when you look at the crowd, and it's understandable, I think
it was empty. When you looked at the crowd, I mean,
it was a very heavy. It was overwhelmingly Welsh versus US.
But the Americans that were there were pretty loud in the first half.
They were. But then,
it didn't really seem like because it did sound like a pro-American crowd in the first half and a pro-Welsh crowd in the second half.
But
and Wales had a chance even before with the corner kick and that great Turner save in the 65th minute. That I thought was going to be the equalizer even before the penalty kick. But after that foul, as soon as you see Bales lining up for a penalty kick, just done.
Yep, you had a feeling there. So, all right, we will definitely come back to this. Anything else on this, or should we let Brandon have his say on his team?
Well, I mean, clearly, I'm the soccer expert here on the show.
I know you quiet like 15 minutes here.
Yeah, I mean, I was just you guys know I'm not soccer, but like obviously, I want us to do well. So, albeit I listen to you guys on soccer. You guys know what you're talking about.
Yeah. At least on this case, you're polite about it. You're not sitting there going
on the show.
Yeah. Well, no, inside you're probably like,
you don't know what happens here in
on the feed that we.
He's watching YouTube while this is going on.
Soccer, sport.
Yeah.
Go, America.
Yeah, America. Yeah,
America.
So, USA in 2 o'clock.
Yeah, I got my blue light. I get.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the most I can do.
With your blue light and your blue heart, why don't you tell us about your boys in green?
Oh boy!
All right.
There we go. That's the best way to describe it right there.
The investment that I had yesterday, that I was to sit down for 3 hours for 59 and a half minutes of play, sitting there like really like stressing out, heart beating out of my eyeballs, and then to see what happened and to hear Kevin Harlan lose his voice over this while I'm losing my voice over this, while my girlfriend's yelling at me to stop yelling. This was just a whole cluster F of just not great situation. First off, the type of football that was played yesterday, regardless of wind, was the most 1945 football I've ever seen. Oh my God. But first off, Mac Jones looked like Drew Brees compared to Zach Wilson, who I'll get to in just a moment. But for the most part, they were identical games on both sides of the ball, right? Both defenses played mirror to mirror, punch for punch, and held each other up the whole game, right? And now I just mentioned Mac Jones and that offense, Patriots offense, was able to create some drives, right? They were able to get to the red zone a few times, some third down conversions, but really when they needed to, and especially in the red zone, the Jets defense held them on a number of 3-and-outs. They had more sacks than an Idaho potato farm. I mean, they really put a number. And let's even go back to the other Patriots game a couple weeks ago. In 2 games, not giving up a single touchdown, and you lose both games. That doesn't even make sense. And I'll throw this stat at you that I read today that I had to read it 3 times because I couldn't believe this. In the second half, the Jets averaged, now mind you, football is measured in yards. That 3 feet in a yard, 12 inches in a foot. Okay, that's how that divides out. The Jets averaged 2.77 inches per play in the second half. That shouldn't even be physically possible. That I inches. I didn't even know football and inches were allowed to be in the same sentence.
It is a game of inches, though. They do say that.
4th and inches.
Okay, for forgetting that point. But in such a stat like that, to see inches per play was mind-boggling to me. 1 yard in the third.
When you have 3,600 inches across the field, if it doesn't matter. Right?
1 yard in the fourth. Minus 21 passing yards in the second half. I can do that. You can do that. All of us on the show can throw for minus 21 passing yards at least.
What is that about that right there? Right there, give or take.
And Zach Wilson. through these games, your return, other than, like the Pittsburgh game, there were some moments really early on when you came back. But as of late, pretty much since the Green Bay game, or even the Dolphins game, the defense had been carrying the team to the point where they are winning despite Zach Wilson. Right? We are in year 2. We are halfway or past the halfway point of year 2 here with Zach Wilson. I get it. He hasn't had a full season on the field, but you had a full season off the field. I'm not seeing where the real commitment is to want to progress to be a better quarterback. Look at all the other quarterbacks just in his class, let alone the 3-4 year, like really all the rookie deals and stuff like that. They have all made steps. Justin Fields is running across the NFL fields like he's Forrest Gump, running all over the place. Mac Jones got to a playoff game, got to the playoffs last year and is in a position to get to another playoff game, position now. Trevor Lawrence, he's Jacksonville is still a funny situation. They just got 100 million violations to really to tip of the iceberg in that team. And it's just really, I know I'm missing somebody. Trey Lance is injured, so that really doesn't count. Zach, what progress has Zach Wilson really have done in these games since coming back and since coming into the NFL? Like, I get these really early years, you're like learning to be an NFL quarterback, but these other guys have had their moments. Zach has not had these moments yet, and then for him to really have such a lack of awareness at the podium. Mm-hmm. To stand up there, and that's a whole nother part of this, to stand up there and quickly be like, no, it wasn't me. Like, wait, were you Shaggy? It wasn't you. Like, come on, dude. Like, it's really such a shame because you won the Buffalo game. You should have won the first game against the Patriots at home a few weeks ago. And you could have won this game. As terrible as the offense was, as terrible as Zach Wilson was yesterday, missing so many easy passes, so many they weren't even close. Like, it was really a terrible display of actually throwing the football. And I don't even mind everybody being so candid. You hear Salah being like, oh, it was dog shit. You hear Garrett Wilson being the passing game. Like, we have the guys here. But the passing game, quite frankly, to be honest with you, is and they're right, because what Zach Wilson did was divide the locker room.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Alienating his allies in the process.
You did, which really brings you to your final, like, this is your most pivotal moment in his career thus far. I don't think he should be benched, but you start this game. You're coming home against the Bears, right? This is going to be a one-on-one matchup against Justin Fields, like I was just mentioning in your draft class, the whole nine, who's running for like 900 yards, who will have probably 1,400 yards at the end of the season. Okay, you're going to come home to a raucous crowd right after Thanksgiving. You are going to have one series. If you don't get a first down on that first series, A, he should be benched. And B, what's definitely going to happen is it will be one of the loudest boos your TV has ever projected. You'll have to lower the volume on your TV. And I think another part of this is Robert Saleh. I think we're going to see how he really galvanizes a team. Because the Zach Wilson, that situation is what it is. And if they have to bench him, they do so. That's fine. But if he can keep everybody else, I think it's really going to show a lot of good faith and just a lot of kind of good good stance with Jet fans. I think if they were able to rally next week, regardless of the quarterback situation. Look, the season's not over. you're still in a position to be in a playoff spot, to get a wild card spot. The division now, I think, is really, out of the way. But it's just so frustrating, and I think it's quite fitting because this will be my last point. Black Friday is coming up. One of probably America's biggest shopping day of the year. Be surprised if they're in the back rooms of MetLife Stadium and the Jets training facility, there are some executives and some scouts doing a little Black Friday shopping on seeing who's going to be on the quarterback market next year.
Now, let me ask you this question. You have a choice in this case, just basically black or white. You have Zach Wilson growth or guaranteed playoff spot with say, Flacco. Which would you take?
Playoff spot.
Yeah, open to all of you guys on this one, please.
I think if I'm a Jets team, executive, owner, forget fan, it's Flacco. Here, because I'm looking at many times I say, and just to get back into the conversation we have. He's a young quarterback with a good team around him. Let's see what happens when we pay him, and then we'll know how good he is because we're going to have to cut down the level of people around him. But what the Jets,
is this a guy you want to pay now?
No, I don't think so. The Jets, what the Jets did with their draft, first round in the first and into the second round was unbelievable. You have Sauce is for real. I mean, I was watching the Eagles game, and then we get to see the end of the Jets game. That's what they switched to. So we saw Wilson throw an incomplete pass and then the punt. And we were all talking about just what's going on with that Jets defense, how scary it is that is a team where the young quarterback is not living up to he's got tools around him and he's not doing it. So if I'm a Jet fan, give me Flacco, make a run. And next year, maybe we talk to the 49ers and, we take a Garoppolo. Maybe somebody else, we'll take somebody else's second-tier quarterback who's not going to cost us what it is going to cost us to have to even exercise his option or franchise Wilson. I would quit on Wilson at this point. Now, for every Jet fan watching, I'm the worst at predicting quarterbacks, so that's probably a good sign, but I would quit on Wilson because I see what else is going on around that team. And
I'm one game away from
I don't want to bench him yet, but I do want to bench him at halftime of the Chicago game if this stuff continues
or earlier if need be. I really think they're he's on a series by series basis,
as he should be. And the garbage that he said after the game somehow made the garbage on the field even worse.
Magnifies it greatly.
I compared his offensive numbers to Tebow a few weeks ago, and he's making that forget Mark Sanchez. Wilson is putting up Tim Tebow offensive numbers.
He's putting up LaMarcus Russell numbers.
Yes,
Mark Sanchez has more playoff wins at this moment in his career than basically Zach
first
Wilson
2 years for Sanchez. Yeah,
Flacco has more touchdown passes this season still, despite only playing 3 games, than Wilson does.
Now here's the other side of this too. As we're reaching into, definitely in the second half, final third of the season almost at this point, you have to start looking at the teams that you've beaten. Now you've beaten the Bills, you've beaten, the Dolphins, but you've lost 2 to the Patriots, who very quietly have won 5 out of 6 and are now a game behind in the AFC East. Do you start looking at the Patriots and seeing them as the team to beat in the East now? Is it possible?
No, not with Buffalo still around.
Even Miami, I think even on paper, I think that it's still too much. But New England is doing what they did last year, where they started to really kind of get the gears going this time of year, got into a wild card spot, and then lost historically bad to a division rival. So again, if they got into it and then won a game, and then maybe is it the Joe Burrow thing where it's like the wild card gets on a thing, but no, I still think Buffalo and Miami And I like we could say they're still not better than the Jets, but like they do, crap like this for 2 games, where even with a penalty that takes points off the board, notwithstanding, you still you couldn't score any offensive touchdowns. So so Zach, depending on how this Chicago game goes, we'll see how it. But LaFleur has to go also. We haven't mentioned him yet.
I've been saying all year LaFleur is awful, and yesterday proved it.
If I see one more 3rd or 4th down pass behind the line of scrimmage, I'm actually going to punch holes through my TV. They've done it for so many years on top of many other issues.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just one of the most illogical parts of it. Like if they need 7 yards, they're going to throw it 4. If they need 10 yards, they will throw it 7. Or if they need 15 yards, God forbid, be aggressive and go for it. They'll throw it a stupid 3-yard screen pass that they don't even have any blockers for. So then he'll lose another 3 yards.
Because they don't trust their quarterback to do it, though.
Some other factors. There's some other factors to play here. One is they're really missing Breece Hall.
Mm-hmm.
If there's been
but the run game was okay yesterday. It's the offensive line is terrible.
The offensive line is terrible. So
that's where the 2.77 inches per play. That's just the defensive line manhandling an offensive line.
And when they're down to their 4th string, their 3rd string left tackle and 4th string right guard, you can kind of expect that. But they were playing better than that, despite all of the injuries. Breece Hall at least had that playmaking ability, that it factor that you no longer have. And with a quarterback like Wilson, there was so many plays yesterday that, and I got to say, I didn't watch this game because I watched Seton Hall basketball, and I am so happy I didn't watch this game because this is the kind of game that I would have probably thrown something at my TV, and I don't need that in my life anymore. I am taking a step back from watching Jets games on the regular for the sake of my mental health. And games like yesterday are the biggest reason why. I've seen this garbage too much over the years, over and over and over again. Terrible offensive coordinator, bad quarterbacks, just one right after another. The names change, but this garbage is the same always.
But your team is 6-2 when it doesn't involve the Patriots.
Right, but they also
yeah, but the wild card standings are going to involve the Patriots come the end of the year.
But
yes.
Being the slight optimist that I am from years of my own suffering,
and the best games where we thought, Zach Wilson is legit, are teams that we now know are also garbage: Pittsburgh and Green Bay.
I want to go back to the question you asked about the division entirely. I look at the division and it's well, I know who the best coach in that division is, and I don't even have to think about it. But I also know the best coach has at best the 3rd best quarterback. And we all thought Tua was tank for Tua was a thing, and he's showing why. He's an unbelievably accurate passer. He has more of an arm than we thought he did, and then you give him a weapon like Tyreek Hill and forget it. And then Josh Allen is the guy who people want. He's one of those 4 quarterbacks in the NFL right now that if he's on your team, you have complete confidence you're going to make the playoffs, which puts the Jets in a hole. And that hole is they don't have a lot of ways to win. And when you don't have a lot of ways to win and Bill Belichick is on the other side, you lose. And that's what it comes down to. If you don't have options, Bill Belichick takes away your first option. So you better have a 2nd and 3rd, and the Jets don't. And that's what's killing the Jets in those other 2 games where they're not 6-2. And there are other coaches along the way who are going to be able to do that to them. And how often are they going to recover a fumble in the end zone? How often is that going to happen when the game should be over? So I think the Jets. I think the Jets are going to be slipping out of that wild card. I mean, you still have whatever's going to happen with Cincinnati, whoever was going to be the 2nd team in the West, and there's other options for that third wild card that aren't in their division when you end up having 2 losses against New England and that Miami team and Buffalo team that both look really good, like really good teams.
Now, in this case right now, looking at the entire there's arguably, we can say 6 teams still in this. And by 6, if you want to include Indianapolis, who's 4-6-1. If you don't want to include that, that's fine.
Jeff Sunday, all of a sudden, Colts.
Yeah. Which obviously, that loss actually hurt them.
Jeff Sundays.
It hurt them, helped the Eagles, and actually helped the Jets too. Because in this case, you pull that team out of the mix, then you have 5 teams looking for 3 playoff spots there. That's a little more feasible right now. You got Buffalo, New England, the Jets, Cincinnati, and then at 5-5 right now is the Chargers. So it is still a winnable playoff spot. You're like you said before, you're going to be tested with this game against, the Bears. But I think it's a winnable game at home, and I think they know it. You've got a tough schedule coming up here with the Vikings coming up. Again, you have to sit there. You got to play Miami. You got to play Buffalo again. But take the win.
I actually don't know how tough is that Vikings game at home or away?
It's on the road. It's in Minnesota.
All right. So maybe less. Look, with the Vikings, you put sauce on Justin Jefferson. If Jefferson is taken out of the game, the Vikings can't do anything.
We just saw that.
Mm-hmm. But I think
they're not winning 40-3. But these are winnable games that Zach Wilson has to be. He is walking the thinnest line out of any quarterback right now.
Another big part of this is that you kind of touched on this, Brandon. Saleh needs to handle this carefully because he's about to have a locker room mutiny.
Mm-hmm.
If Wilson continues to play like this and isn't benched, there will be a full-on locker room mutiny. The defense may just beat the living tar out of Wilson in the locker room after the game. The rate things are going, and with the complete lack of accountability, this is a immature boy, as Stephen A. Smith said in his rant today, which it's bad if I'm agreeing with Stephen A. Smith on anything, but just this is pathetic.
News outlets are killing Wilson for what he said too.
Yeah, and just the only just wide open passes that his screen passes with no coverage, he was throwing over receivers' heads. Blame the wind all you want. He's just terrible.
I feel bad for Elijah Moore. He's like, damn, the one time he throws the balls to me, they're not even close.
I want to see Mike White soon.
Now, this just came down the wire from ESPN, from Saleh. Asked if he's prepared to name Wilson as this week's starter. He said, not right now, not until I'm done evaluating everything. So that is not keeping things quiet and then saying you're going with Wilson. That sounds a little bit more like he is a little more non-committal. So
it sounds like damage control is what that is.
Could very well be that too.
Evaluation could be, in this case, not just be on the field, but what do the rest of the players say? Because this is in the parlance of everyday life, a teachable moment. You want to be the quarterback of this team, it's always we. Remember what happened when Josh Allen lost that first of the 2 games in a row the Bills lost, right? He came out and he said, it is hard to win when your quarterback plays like he used crap. He didn't say crap, but he went one step higher. And that, when you say that, you know what? Everybody who made a mistake on the team, and at least one play, everybody made at least one. Everybody owns up to their mistake instantly when the face of your team does that. Now, the only thing Wilson has going for him is he's not the face of the team. But that doesn't matter. He's still the quarterback. And so that's one of the reasons I am so like, oh, this guy's not NFL ready. Because that's like what they teach you in college. It's just take the blame and move on.
Here's the interesting thing is I'm looking at the stats.
So
Good.
That Obi just touched on a bigger issue. If Wilson isn't the face of the team, who is? Sauce Gardner's a rookie. So they maybe Quinnen Williams.
Okay.
What Zach Wilson needs is a foot to the behind from a player who's a respected leader in that locker room. Who is it though? I don't see who that is.
Somebody needs to talk to him from outside of this locker room.
Who?
Is he still
And it-
dating his mom's
His
girlfriend?
mother's friend?
No. It's not a pampering. See, that's the problem. He's pampered too much by these ladies,
Mhm.
and it's no. I'm too good for that. It's okay. I'm not blaming the narrative on his cougar lifestyle, on his football play. That's not what I'm saying. But I think there is some type of entitlement that he really displayed in that press conference. And
Do you know who this reminds me of?
all I know is
Ryan Leaf.
Sam Darnold wouldn't have acted like that. And you know me, I wanted to keep Sam I Am. That's my boy. And he's still suffocating down in Carolina behind Baker, who I like, and McAdoofus. I can't stand.
One quick note on that. I have never seen 3 quarterbacks with high ankle sprains in the same season. That is so strange to me. And I don't know if there's something up with their equipment or their training staff, but just that just blows my mind. Tangent over.
Well, here's the curious thing. I want to get your thoughts here. Last year, I'm looking at Zach Wilson's quarterback rating was a pedestrian 69.7 rookie year. This year, 72.6. Last year, 9 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, 4-5 this year. Completion rate, both years, 15.5. Big difference, though. Last year, in 13 games, he was sacked 44 times. This year, in 7 games, 16. So the sacks are down by more than half this year on average. So the numbers are pretty much exactly the same as last year, but he is not getting pressured like he was.
Which behind a makeshift line like that is absolutely incredible that he's not getting that much pressure. Like he's getting some pressure, but not to the extent he did last year.
To be fair, he has learned to throw it away a little bit this season.
At least over the past few weeks.
So
a little
Scott,
bit.
what I would prefer to see pressures over sacks. Or
That
pressure
I don't have in front of me.
Yeah, because like it might just be he's throwing the ball way better, but then you would expect to see his completion percentage dropping, but he might be making up for that on another. There should have been 10 more plays he was sacked on. Those are 10 incompletes, and he has 10 completes somewhere where he wouldn't have in the past. So it could be, that's why I think pressures are a better number. But in any case, it's not good under, what did you say, 50% completion percentage?
55.6 both years. 4 touchdowns in 7 games, though.
55% in today's NFL?
That's pathetic.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is that the numbers are pretty much very nearly on par to exactly what they were last year.
Yeah,
so it's
progress. That's what I said.
That's not a category you want to be in.
Yeah.
There are literally categories where he's ranked 34th out of quarter. There is only 32 teams.
He has fewer touchdown passes than his backup, who only played the first 3 games.
Baker has more touchdowns.
Right, but just that stat is incredible to me.
And
Christian
Flacco's
McCaffrey almost has as many touchdowns.
It may have been a lot of years ago, but Flacco did win a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So you have a borderline leader in that clubhouse in a backup.
Right, and they don't win that Cleveland game earlier this year, although that was gift wrapped by Cleveland. For them to close that out, Flacco wins that game. Wilson does not.
We said that the show after that game, and Wilson wouldn't have been able to do that.
So yes, Flacco, you're not going anywhere long term with Joe Flacco, but he might be just enough to get you into the playoffs this year. If he starts off bad, you could either go with Flacco where you know what you have, or throw Mike White out there again, see if anything happens, just to see if you have something for the future.
Hey Scott,
hold on. Let me ask you this.
AFC seedings right now is it Kansas City 1? Is Buffalo 2 or are they 3?
Wait, say that again.
The AFC seedings as of right now is Buffalo.
Kansas City's 8-2. They're the only 8-win team.
And who is number 2? Is it Buffalo or is it somebody else?
I'm looking at Well, Google has it as the Dolphins first, 7-3, and then Bills
Okay.
behind.
See, if I'm any team in the AFC, I'm really hoping that it stays that way. That make so that I have a chance of not having to like. I really like to see Buffalo fall to 4. Just I would like to be able to get through the playoffs without having to face both those teams, because then I only need to get lucky once. And if I have Joe Flacco, I can get lucky once. I can get a game where that superstar quarterback's off, everything goes right on my team, and Joe Flacco's quarterbacking. And so, yeah, you're even making me want to have Joe Flacco be the QB that much more. Like, just I don't think you're going to get lucky with Wilson.
According to ESPN, it is this order currently with tiebreakers: Kansas City 1, Miami 2, Tennessee 3, Baltimore 4, Buffalo 5, Patriots 6, Bengals 7.
Okay.
Jets currently on the outside looking in.
Okay.
Yeah,
let's.
So we're talking Buffalo versus Lamar versus Allen first round right now.
And keep in mind, Cincinnati has a worse division record than the Jets do.
But when it comes to wild card, only conference record matters.
Okay.
So you
Still
asked the
anyway.
question, Scott. Let's say we got to made it to a 7th seed, whatever, with Joe Flacco and the Jets. Okay, let's just say it's the way it is. Right? Was it Tennessee at 3?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Would you trust Joe Flacco with that defense against Ryan Tannehill?
Yes.
I don't know. If that were the case, could the Jets sneakily find themselves? Let's just say it's Joe. Could they sneakily find themselves in an AFC Championship game?
That's what I'm saying.
Playoffs first.
And then even if you get demolished, you lose 60-0 to, let's just say, the Chiefs, bro. That I'm losing my. That's a great season. We lost 60-0 to the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. What a great season!
You're gonna be back there in a decade.
Yeah, like it's just like, and it really starts now because we are really starting to get to the tail end of the season. And now we are starting to get into the mode of you're not controlling your own destiny. Like you're really at the fringe of it, the Jets, where you're just because, with the Chargers losing last night, like you do have that. That's it. But that's it. I just think like this quarterback situation needs to be solved very quickly because something very special can, even if it's ahead of schedule, something can happen quickly here. This is a really, really talented team, and it's like I said before, to start this whole thing, it's just so frustrating.
And in the NFC, is it Philadelphia, Minnesota, Seattle, Tampa, Dallas, New York, and the football team? Like, is it the entire NFC East?
Yeah. Yeah, because actually every single team in the East, in the NFC East, has a winning record right now. The Commodes are 6-5.
Yeah, the only East team that sucks is the Panthers.
I mean, right now, statistically, the 49ers are 5-4. So, 6-5, 5-4, that's where they stand right now. But we'll see. We'll know more, obviously, as of tonight. But yeah, if the season ended today, then the entire NFC East is in the playoffs.
Well, that's good for the Giants having, suffered at the hands of Detroit, who is 4-6, mind you, which is just
y'all got to show up on Thursday.
We have basically. Here's what I will say about the Giants right now. They lost that game yesterday to a very good Lions team, and in the process, they exposed a lot of mistakes. They showed a stat during that game that Daniel Jones threw he threw 2 interceptions, which is part of the reason why big reason they lost. But he had the longest consecutive interception-free streak at 154 passes. Daniel Jones had the longest streak in the NFL this season before he threw a pick. So in this season, up until this point, he'd only thrown 2 picks. He threw 2 yesterday. They give up 31 points. You got that sense and that vibe watching that game yesterday that it was going to get out of hand with them. Just everything that could have gone wrong did. And unfortunately, now in 3 days' time, they're playing Dallas in Dallas on Thanksgiving night. that is going to be a game that they are probably not going to win. But you know what? You fall to 7-4, you regroup, you got a week and a half off, and 3-3 will still get you into a playoff spot.
If the only football games you watched this year were this week's games, right now you'd say, oh, well, that Dallas team, if I told you everybody's record, you'd say, well, that Cowboys team is the best team in the NFL. They did everything right, although I think they just exposed Minnesota more than they did anything else. I think what Brandon was saying earlier, if you have a situation where you can go 1-10, put one on Jeffries, and you can let the other 10 guys play defense, I think you can stop that offense. So
the Jets have in Sauce.
What the Jets do seem to have right now, Sauce is like, I agree. I think Sauce is that good, and I definitely think he's better than Diggs. So Minnesota is going to have that weakness as they play some more games this year. And Philadelphia plays to the level of their opponents sometimes, right? I mean, I saw that Jacksonville game, and it was still early, but my cousin who's an Eagles fan was like, "Oh, this game could be close. This Jacksonville team is good." Well, the game was close, but that Jacksonville team is not good. And this week was the same thing. Like, that game was close, and I had a friend come to watch the game. The first drive the Eagles had, the first 3 plays of the game the Eagles had were all offensive plays. By the time that my buddy got into the house and sat down, it was 1st and 35 for the Eagles. So they have some problems. We were not happy, a group of happy people. Fortunately, the defense came up, made some plays. But boy, I would be a little nervous as a Giant fan. And then I could also, on the other hand, look back 2 weeks and see what happened against Green Bay and not be so nervous. The Cowboy team is incredibly erratic.
But they're typically good on Thanksgiving. This is home. This is national. This is Jerry Jones's audience. He set this up so basically this team could play on a national stage.
Even Detroit is better, like 100 points better overall in their record on Thanksgiving than
they're riding high after a big win.
This is the best lineup of Thanksgiving games that we've seen in a while.
Oh, yeah.
Usually they're garbage. Yeah. Who's the third game again? I forget.
Atlanta, I think it's probably.
No, Vikings. Somebody else?
Definitely 2 teams.
I think it is Minnesota.
Two professional teams, too. Yeah.
Yes. Sports balls.
Yeah.
Hang on a minute.
They
Buffalo and Detroit.
Oh, that's good.
New England and Minnesota.
That's good. NFL.com.
And the Patriots. Yeah, and Vikings, Patriots.
Okay, NFL.com. They have their Thursday schedule. Shut up here. 27th, November 3rd, 10th, 17th, December 1st. They skipped week 12. They got a week 11 and week 13. They literally skipped Thanksgiving Day on their own website. Oh, good Lord. But all right, guys. So thanks as always for tuning in. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Brendan. Thank you, JD. Thank you, Obi. I'm Scott. Tales from the Film Set's coming up next. We're going to be griping about what's going on with everything in the world of Disney. First, Bob Iger stepped down. Bob Chapek took over. Bob Chapek is out. And Bob Iger is back in. Panic mode in Disney time. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that. Anyway, thanks as always. Take care. Stay